Hi, my name is Luna, and what you're about to hear is one of the strangest things I've ever witnessed. This isn't a rumor. This isn't a story I heard from someone else. This is a moment I saw with my own eyes, inside my own school. What started as quiet whispers in a classroom turned into something I still think about years later. So before we begin, if you enjoy true confession stories like this, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment telling me which part of the story stayed with you the most. Now, let's begin. It started with whispers. That morning, sunlight filled our classroom and everything looked normal. Students laughed, someone complained about homework, and Mrs. Carter stood at the board writing notes for class. But no one was really paying attention. Everyone was whispering. Rumors travel fast in school, and this one had spread overnight. People were saying Mrs. Carter and Mr. Adams had been getting too close. Secret meetings, late hours, things teachers weren't supposed to do. I didn't know if it was true, but I noticed something strange. When Mrs. Carter glanced toward the hallway, her face tightened, and outside the door, Mr. Adams stood for just a moment before walking away quickly. Something was definitely wrong. Later in the hallway, the rumors grew louder. Students gathered near lockers, whispering and giggling. Some even stared openly as Mr. Adams and Mrs. Carter spoke quietly near the teacher's lounge. Their conversation looked tense, almost secretive, like they didn't want anyone to see them together. I walked past pretending not to notice, but I noticed everything. At lunchtime, I went to the restroom, hoping for a little quiet. The hallway was calmer, most students already in the cafeteria. Inside the restroom, everything felt peaceful, just the hum of fluorescent lights and the echo of running water. I washed my hands, thinking about assignments and weekend plans. Then, the door exploded open. A woman stormed inside. I didn't recognize her at first, but her anger filled the entire room. Her eyes were locked on someone behind her. She dragged Mrs. Carter into the restroom by the arm. Mrs. Carter looked terrified, confused, trying to pull away. It took me a second to understand. This was Mrs. Adams, Mr. Adams's wife, and she knew. The shouting started immediately. Accusations, betrayal, words thrown like knives. Mrs. Adams demanded answers, her voice shaking with rage. Mrs. Carter tried to explain, tried to calm her down, but nothing worked. I stood frozen by the sinks, heart pounding. The door was blocked. I couldn't leave. Everything escalated too quickly. Voices got louder, movements sharper. Fear replaced confusion. I remember feeling like time slowed, like I was watching something I wasn't supposed to see. The argument spiraled out of control. Mrs. Carter stumbled as Mrs. Adams pushed her back. Panic, shouting, chaos echoing off the tiled walls. I pressed myself against the counter, wishing someone would come in, wishing this wasn't happening in front of me. Then, finally, the door opened again. Another teacher rushed inside, pulling Mrs. Adams away, shouting for her to stop. Everything felt blurry after that. Mrs. Carter stayed on the floor, shaking, trying to steady herself. Teachers crowded around, voices overlapping, trying to calm everyone down. Someone told me to leave. So I did. Outside, the hallway felt unreal. Students gathered, whispering, sensing drama without knowing what happened. I leaned against the lockers, trying to breathe normally again. A few minutes later, Mrs. Carter came out, supported by staff members. Her face looked pale, exhausted, embarrassed. Everyone stared, but no one spoke. And somehow, classes just continued. The next morning felt even stranger. Mrs. Carter walked into class like nothing had happened. She wore heavy makeup, but it couldn't fully hide how tired she looked. The room was quiet. No one mentioned the incident. During class, she leaned toward my desk and spoke softly. "If you heard anything, it's not true.
Okay?" I nodded, even though we both knew I had seen everything. Later, I saw Mr. Adams walking through the hallway. He looked different, smaller somehow. Students whispered as he passed, but teachers greeted him normally. In the teacher's lounge, staff chatted over coffee as if yesterday never existed. Mrs. Carter avoided eye contact. Mr. Adams stared at the floor. Life moved on. Too easily. That night, I lay in bed replaying everything. The shouting, the fear, the silence afterward. How could something so intense just disappear? Weeks passed, rumors faded, students forgot, and teachers acted normal again. Mrs. Carter continued teaching. Mr. Adams stayed at school. No announcements, no consequences. Nothing. Except for me. I couldn't forget the look on Mrs. Carter's face, or the anger in Mrs. Adams's voice, or the way adults, people we're supposed to trust, made mistakes just like anyone else. One afternoon, Mrs. Carter taught class calmly, as if the incident had never happened. Her bruises were gone, but something in her expression felt permanently sad. I realized then that even when wounds disappear, memories don't. On the last day before break, I left school as the sun set behind the building. Students laughed around me, already forgetting exams and drama. I stopped and looked back once. The school stood quietly, like nothing bad had ever happened there, like it never would again. Walking home, I understood something. Sometimes the world doesn't pause when something shocking happens. Sometimes people just move on, pretend, forget. But the ones who saw it, who felt it, they remember. And maybe growing up means realizing adults don't always have everything figured out. Sometimes they're just as lost as the rest of us. And that was the day I learned. The loudest stories are often the ones nobody talks about, and life goes on anyway.